My name is Emma, and I'm telling you this story from a place I never thought I would end up. Some people say I'm cursed, others say I'm already dead but just don't know it yet. What I know for sure is that I went somewhere in Lagos that no amount of money can take you to, and I came back with something that refuses to leave me alone. If you are watching this, please learn from my mistake and stay far away from places that your eyes should never see. It started on a very hot Thursday afternoon in March when the sun was so angry that it felt like it was punishing the whole city. I was sitting in my small one-room apartment in Mushin, staring at my empty bank account on my cracked phone screen. I had just lost my job at the printing press because the owner said business was slow and he could no longer afford to pay all of us. My rent was due in 2 weeks, and my landlord was the kind of man who would throw your belongings into the gutter without any mercy or second thoughts. I was desperate, broke, and ready to do almost anything to survive in this wicked Lagos hustle. That same evening, my childhood friend Emeka called me with a voice full of excitement and energy. He told me he had found a new job that paid very well, and he wanted to bring me along because he knew I was suffering. Emeka and I grew up together in the same compound, sharing the same dreams of leaving poverty behind and becoming big men in Lagos. When he told me the job involved driving a delivery van at night to different parts of the city, I didn't ask too many questions. I was just happy that someone remembered me when money was involved. He said the pay was 50,000 naira for just one night of work, which was more than I made in a whole month at the printing press. My spirit jumped with joy, and I agreed immediately without thinking twice about why anyone would pay so much for a simple delivery job. The following Saturday night, Emeka came to pick me up in a black Toyota Hiace van that looked old but still strong enough to carry heavy loads. The inside of the van smelled like old newspapers and something else I couldn't identify, something faint and metallic that made my nose itch. Emeka was wearing all black clothes and a very serious expression that I had never seen on his face before. He told me that the job was simple. We would drive to a place called Egbisa Market, pick up some packages, and deliver them to a warehouse in Ajigona before sunrise. He warned me not to ask questions about what was inside the packages and not to open any of them, no matter how curious I became. I nodded my head in agreement, thinking that maybe we were carrying expensive electronics or foreign goods that rich people wanted to smuggle into the city without paying customs. We drove through the empty streets of Lagos while the city slept under the orange glow of the few walking street lights. The roads were quiet except for the occasional night bus and the street hawkers who were packing up their goods. As we got closer to Egbisa Market, the roads became narrower and darker, with fewer lights and more shadows. The buildings on both sides looked abandoned, with broken windows and walls covered in old posters and graffiti. Emeka turned off the radio and told me to stay alert because this area was known for armed robbers and area boys who could appear from nowhere. I felt a cold sweat on my back even though the night was very warm and humid. When we finally arrived at Egbisa Market, I realized that this was not a normal market at all. The place looked like it had been forgotten by the government and by God himself. The stores were made of rusted zinc and rotten wood, and there was garbage everywhere, piled so high that it looked like small mountains. The smell was unbearable, a mixture of decaying food, human waste, and something else that made my stomach turn violently. There were no people walking around, no traders shouting prices, and no sound of generators or music. The silence was so thick that I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears like a war drum. Emeka parked the van in front of a very large warehouse that had no sign or name on it. The building was painted in dark red, and the paint was peeling off in long strips that looked like dried blood. He told me to wait in the van while he went inside to confirm the packages. I sat there in the darkness, watching the shadows move around the empty market. After what felt like a very long hour, Emeka came back with 2 men who were dressed in black robes that covered their entire bodies. They didn't greet me or even look at me, they just started loading heavy wooden crates into the back of the van. The crates had strange symbols carved into them, symbols that looked like ancient writing from a language I had never seen before. Each crate was sealed with thick chains and old padlocks that looked like they had been used for many years. As they were loading the last crate, one of the men in black robes turned to me and stared directly into my eyes. His face was completely hidden under a hood, but I could feel his gaze burning through me like hot iron. He spoke in a very low voice that sounded like gravel scraping against metal. "Do not look inside the crates. Do not speak about what you see tonight. Do not return to this place, even if you are paid ₦1,000,000. I wanted to ask why, but the words were stuck in my throat like dry bread. Emeka quickly pushed me back into the van and told me we had to leave immediately before the market spirits woke up. We drove away from Egbisa Market as fast as the old van could move, heading toward Ajugana where we were supposed to make the delivery. But as we were driving through a dark stretch of road surrounded by thick bushes, something very strange began to happen. The temperature inside the van dropped so suddenly that I could see my breath forming white clouds in the air. The engine started making a loud knocking sound, and the headlights began to flicker like dying candles. Emeka was gripping the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles turned white, and his eyes were wide with a fear that I had never seen in him before. He whispered to me in a shaking voice, "Chidi, whatever you do, do not look at the back of the van. Do not turn your head, no matter what you hear." But of course, curiosity is a very dangerous thing, especially when someone tells you not to do something. I heard a sound coming from the back of the van, a sound like slow breathing mixed with the scraping of wood against metal. Against every instinct in my body, I turned my head slowly and looked through the small window that separated the driver's cabin from the cargo area. What I saw in that moment made my blood freeze in my veins and my soul tried to escape from my body. The wooden crates were moving on their own, shaking violently as if something inside them was trying to break free. Dark, oily liquid was seeping out from the cracks in the wood, spreading across the floor of the van like living ink. And then, I saw something that I will never forget for as long as I live. From one of the crates, a pale white hand emerged, pushing through the wood like it was made of soft clay. The fingers were long and twisted, with nails that were black and sharp like the claws of a wild animal. The hand reached out toward me, stretching impossibly far across the space of the van, and I could hear a voice whispering my name over and over again in a tone that was neither male nor female. "Emma. Emma. Emmanuel." The voice was calling me, inviting me to come closer, to open the crates and see what was inside. I screamed so loud that Emeka lost control of the steering wheel, and the van swerved violently to the side of the road. We crashed into a ditch, and everything went black for a few seconds. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying on the ground outside the van, and Emeka was pulling me away from the wreckage. The back doors of the van had burst open, and the crates were scattered across the road, some of them broken and spilling their contents onto the asphalt. I looked at what was inside those crates, and I wished to this very day that I had kept my eyes closed. Inside were not electronics or foreign goods or anything normal. Inside were bodies, or what used to be bodies. They were dried and shriveled like ancient mummies, wrapped in red cloth and covered in strange markings that glowed faintly in the darkness. Their faces were frozen in expressions of pure terror and pain, with mouths wide open as if they died screaming. Emeka was crying and begging me to run, to leave everything behind and never speak about what we saw. We ran through the bushes like madmen, our clothes tearing on thorns and our feet bleeding from the sharp stones. We ran until we reached a main road where we flagged down a downfall bus that was heading back toward the city. The driver looked at us with suspicion because we were covered in dirt and blood, but he let us in after Emeka gave him all the money in his pocket. We sat in the back of the bus, shaking and refusing to look at each other, knowing that we had crossed a line that should never be crossed. When I finally made it back to my room in Mushin, I locked the door and collapsed on my bed, hoping that sleep would erase the memories of that terrible night. But sleep did not bring peace. It brought nightmares that felt more real than reality itself. I dreamed that I was back in the van, and the pale hand was reaching for me again, pulling me into the darkness of the crate. I woke up screaming, drenched in cold sweat, and that's when I realized that something had followed me home. In the corner of my room, standing perfectly still in the shadows, was a figure dressed in the same black robes as the men from Egbisa market. I tried to scream, but no sound came out of my mouth. The figure just stood there, watching me with invisible eyes, waiting for something. Since that night, my life has become a living nightmare that never ends. Every night at exactly 3 in the morning, I wake up to find the figure standing in my room, always in the same corner, always silent and still. I have tried moving to different houses, sleeping at friends' places, and even spending nights at the church, but it doesn't matter where I go. The figure always finds me, always appears at 3 in the morning, always watching and waiting. I went to see a pastor who prayed over me for 3 days straight, but the prayers only made things worse. The night after the deliverance session, I woke up to find my room filled with 7 figures instead of 1, all standing around my bed in a circle. I tried to find Emeka to ask him what we should do, but when I went to his house, his family told me that Emeka had disappeared 3 days after that night. They said he left the house one morning and never came back, and the police couldn't find any trace of him anywhere in Lagos. His phone was switched off, his bank account was untouched, and it was as if he had simply vanished from the face of the earth. I knew then that whatever we had disturbed that night was not going to let us go easily. I was alone in this curse, carrying a burden that I could not share with anyone because no one would believe me. The worst part is not the figure that appears every night or the nightmares that torment my sleep. The worst part is the slow change that I feel happening inside my body and my mind. I have started to see things in the daytime now, shadows that move when they shouldn't, faces in the crowd that disappear when I look directly at them, and whispers in languages I don't understand. My skin has become very pale and cold to the touch, and I have lost so much weight that my friends are asking if I am sick with a terrible disease. I can barely eat because everything tastes like ash and metal, and when I look in the mirror, sometimes I see someone else's face staring back at me with empty, hollow eyes. I went to see a Babalawo in Bedigri who is known for dealing with spiritual problems that ordinary pastors cannot solve. The old man took one look at me and immediately told me to leave his shrine because I was carrying something that he did not want to touch. He said that I had become a carrier, a vessel for spirits that were trapped between this world and the next. He explained that the bodies in those crates were people who had been used for money rituals, and their spirits were still angry and looking for a way to be free. By seeing them and knowing their existence, I had become connected to their suffering, and now they wanted to use me as a bridge to return to the world of the living. The Babalawo told me that there was only one way to break the connection, but it was a solution that was worse than the curse itself. He said I would have to return to Egbisa market, find the warehouse, and perform a ritual that would transfer the curse to someone else. I would have to bring another person with me, someone innocent and unsuspecting, and let the spirits take them instead of me. I left his shrine feeling more hopeless than ever because I knew I could never do such a wicked thing to another human being, no matter how much I was suffering. Now I live each day knowing that I am slowly fading away, becoming less human and more like the spirits that haunt me. I have stopped going to work, stopped seeing my friends, and stopped hoping for a normal life. My landlord has already thrown my belongings out because I couldn't pay the rent, and I am now sleeping in abandoned buildings and under bridges, moving from place to place to avoid the figures that multiply every week. Last night, I counted 12 of them standing around me in a circle, and I know that soon there will be too many for me to count. I am writing this story as a warning to anyone who thinks that fast money is worth the risk. I am telling you that there are places in Lagos that exist beyond what your eyes can see, markets that trade in things that should never be bought or sold, and jobs that pay well because they are taking something more valuable than money from you. If someone offers you 50,000 naira for one night of work and tells you not to ask questions, please run far away and never look back. If you see a place that feels wrong, that smells like death and darkness, trust your instincts and leave immediately. I don't know how much longer I have before I become one of them, before I lose myself completely and join the spirits in their eternal waiting. But I want people to know the truth about what happened to me and to Emeka, wherever he is now. I want parents to warn their children about the dangers of desperation and the traps that are set for young people who are hungry for success. Lagos is a beautiful city, but it has a dark underbelly that feeds on the souls of the desperate and the greedy. If you ever see a man walking the streets of Mushin or Ajagono at night, looking very pale and thin with eyes that seem to stare through you instead of at you, that might be me. And if you do see me, please do not call my name or try to help me, because I am no longer the Emma who grew up dreaming of a better life. I am something else now, something caught between two worlds, paying the price for one night of greed and curiosity. I went to the darkest part of Lagos, and even though I came back, I should never have returned because I brought the darkness back with me, and now it lives inside my soul, eating away at everything I used to be.